When I came to, I was in a jail cell with a man yelling in Spanish. I couldn't understand the Spanish, but when he spoke in English, all he said was, "I'm going to get fucking deported. I need to call my girlfriend." I noticed he was missing a thumb. Looked like he'd been missing it for a while. I heard my name being called, walked into another room, and tried to walk in a straight line and stand on one leg. I couldn't. So I blew into the machine. .11, the officer said. I was allowed to make a phone call, and I called the 4 numbers I'd memorized: my mom, my stepdad, my dad, and my ex-girlfriend. No one picked up. Then I was sent to a different officer who took my shoelaces and gave me a blanket. "Sail tan," she said. The man yelling in Spanish kept arguing, and she screamed back. Still couldn't understand a word she said. Should have taken a Spanish course in college. Walked to my cell and realized that I never appreciated my shoelaces until this moment. So now I'm on a 2-inch thick foam pad wrapped in blue vinyl. There's 3 other bunks in my cell, and the Spanish-speaking man comes in behind me and takes the bunk opposite me. Cell is small, maybe 8 feet by 5 feet. Still bigger than my garage apartment. There's a toilet right next to my bunk, and there's shit in it. Flies are buzzing all around the shit in it. The water fountain for the cell is connected to the toilet. And if you want to drink water, you gotta put your face over a giant pile of shit. I had nothing to do but sleep. Eventually, I hear an officer yelling to wake up. It's time for roll call. Walk out of the cell, in a large room, curling my toes, pushing down to keep my shoes from sliding off. When I get to the main room, I see that there are 30 of us degenerates, pieces of human shit, according to the state. The room has 2 of the toilet/water fountains, and their condition is similar to the one in my cell. When your name was called, you got a styrofoam tray covered with plastic and a tiny carton of apple juice, smaller than my weed grinder. Inside was a rice dish, some beans, some diced carrots. The rice dish had a lot of spices and peppers in it. I refused to take a shit while I was in jail, so the rice dish was out. I also hate beans. So I was going to eat just the carrots. After a few bites, I heard an officer yell, "Clifton! Victor!" Visitor, not Clifton. Clifton, visitor. So I have a visitor. I walked out to a room with a phone next to a glass wall. Behind the wall was Darby, my stepdad. I picked up the phone. "Hey, Darby." "Hey, son, how are you?" "I'm okay, I just fucking hate in here." "Yeah, well, you'll be in here for a while longer. It'll be at least 16 hours before your bond is posted, but we're on it. Just hang tight, okay?" "Yeah." I put my hand on the glass. Like I've seen in so many movies. "What day is it?" "I don't know." Fuck! The one person who came to visit me is the one guy who never knows what day it is. "Is Mom okay?" "She's fine. I gotta go, but don't worry. We'll get you out of here." And with that, he was gone. My stepdad has always been a man of few words, and when he does speak, there's very little sentimentality behind what he says. When you've known him for as long as I do, you know that our brief conversation translated to, "I love you, my son, and we're doing everything we can to get you out. You're going to be okay." I went back to the room with my food, and I wasn't too surprised to find that someone already swiped my food. I was the smallest man in the room at 5'6", 160 pounds, so I wasn't going to accuse anyone of stealing my food. A few minutes later, I was reassigned to cell 4 and given 3 bunkmates. One of them was a Spanish-speaking man missing a thumb. When I laid down on my foam pad, I cried. I kept it quiet, but I sobbed for a good 30 minutes. I let everybody in my family down. I'm not a bad kid. I don't even drink too often, and when I do, I avoid driving. I fucked up, and now I was paying for it. This was just like the HBO hit series Oz. Then I remembered that Russia just invaded the Ukraine and I had no idea what was going on. Last thing I remember before falling asleep was worrying that World War III had already begun and I was stuck in this cell. I worried that when I left jail, everyone in the world would be dead, except for me and a handful of convicts. There'd be tensions at first with the inevitable power vacuum, but I'm sure we could band together and we could overcome our differences. I may not have street smarts, but I majored in political philosophy, so I think I know a few things about setting up a functional society. We'd hang out downtown, reminiscing about the past, eating nothing but coconuts. Coconuts. And trying to rebuild. I figured we could be called the Jailbirds. That's it. Done. Get Hollywood on the phone. Eventually it was time for the second meal. Turkey sandwich, 4 cookies, and apple juice. Took a bite out of my sandwich and something wasn't right. I peeled the slice of bread off and saw the most disgusting thing sitting on my sandwich. Mustard. Yuckers! I fucking hate mustard! This wasn't jail, this was a concentration camp. I peeled off the one piece of turkey with mustard remains, chunked it in the garbage. I tried to eat the rest of my food, but I was so put off that I wasn't even hungry anymore. Afterwards, I tried to call my dad. He picked up. The last thing he said to me before I hung up was, "Make sure you don't get transferred to county." Click. So, Suddenly I heard my name. Clifton. I looked up and a female guard was looking at me. "Let's go." Before I knew it, I was handcuffed in a chain with 7 other inmates, and we were on a bus to county. On our way to the bus, an effervescent young man decided to speak his mind. Let's call him Quampus. "Yo, when I get the fuck up out of here, I'm gonna buy some weed. I'm gonna call my bitch." I didn't say a word the whole time. Once we were on the bus, Quampus said, "Yo, the hottest motherfucker in this whole joint's that white boy right there." He hadn't said a word this whole time. Don't fuck with that guy. I think Quampus might have saved my life. County was terrible, but at least I got my shoelaces back. We were in a large room with concrete benches. There was another white guy, and he was also in jail for being too drunk, but this was his 3rd time in there. I resolved then and there that I would never go back. The most striking thing about jail was how candidly and freely people talked about the crimes they committed. A sense of pride in being criminals. With the police, the inmates didn't say shit, but when amongst their peers, they admitted to everything. "Oh yeah, I robbed that motherfucker," or "I beat her ass because she was a trifling bitch." But when they professed innocence, it was genuine. One man said, "They got me for jaywalking and said I had weed on me. Shit, I don't even smoke, man." His testimony was corroborated. These people were friends and neighbors, and they knew who really belonged in jail. It was just like the HBO hit series, The Wire. One man said he was arrested for knocking over a jack-in-the-box, but they couldn't prove that it was him who committed the crime. Quampus punched his palm and said, "Somebody snitching. When you get out this motherfucker, we gotta find out who the fuck it was." Eventually it was mealtime again. Cookies and bologna sandwiches. Fuck! I'd never eaten bologna in all my life, and I sure as fuck wasn't gonna start now. It looks so gross. So I was gonna have to make my first jailhouse trade. I decided to make a name for myself and walked up to the biggest guy in the room. "Hey, trade you my sandwich for cookies?" He looked at me long and hard, no doubt trying everything in his power not to poop his pants, out of sheer terror. "Nah, but I'll take your sandwich." "Oh, yeah, sure. I did it. I showed the world what a badass motherfucker I was." Just kidding. I pussed out like a little bitch, and now all I had was a cookie and some apple juice. I was so embarrassed that I didn't even eat the cookie. I was making a name for myself as the guy who's just giving it away. Thank God this wasn't prison, or I would get raped with a donger up the pooper. And then there's the saddest emoticon. It's just the saddest little sad guy. Not too long after losing whatever dignity I had left, an officer came into the room and yelled at the top of her lungs,
"All right, assholes, listen up. Calling out 12 names every 12 hours. If you get called, you're getting out. If you don't get called, shut the fuck up, because I don't want to hear it."
I'd been in jail for what I assumed was 2 days. There were no clocks, no calendars, no windows. The lights were always on. I needed to get out because I was starting to feel the jailhouse jimmies. The prison panic. The big house boogies. I was the last name called. Take a minute and imagine what that was like for me. None of the names were in alphabetical order. 11 names go by with no rhyme, no reason. Madness sinks in until finally you hear that you're allowed to go back to the real world. After standing in the processing line for an hour, I finally got my phone back and walked outside to find the world had changed. There were giant mechanical birds soaring above the city, which was filled with gigantic buildings you can't even see the tops of. I grabbed the first person I found and demanded, "You, miss, who's the president now?" She looked at me like I had just gotten out of a loony bin. "Why, it's Barack Obama, good sir. Are you feeling all right?" I couldn't understand the funky name she had just told me. I stumbled away from her, turned my phone on, and looked him up. A black president? My God, I never thought I would see the day. We had done it. We had done it. America had finally arrived, and everything worked out in the end. Just like in the HBO hit show Entourage. Then I went home, got really high, and pooped for the rest of my life. Thank you.